Hi, my name is Justin. This is Nooks Cooks. Today I'm going to be cooking sweetened beans for halo halo. So let's start. This is another video in a series of videos of components used in my family's version of Kapampangan style halo halo. This is a sweetened white bean. There are different types of sweetened beans used across the Philippines, including sweetened adzuki beans and kidney beans. There are sweetened garbanzo beans and sweetened mung beans, also known as munggo. And if you're thinking, sweetened beans, that seems pretty foreign to me, and from a Western perspective, you'd be correct. There are not very many, if any, adaptations of beans in sweet ways in the West, but across Asia, there are many versions of sweetened beans, including Japan, sweetened red beans or adzuki beans that are used in different desserts and confections. There are red beans that are used in Korea and China. In China, there are sweetened mung beans. You can find those in mooncakes. There are sweetened mung beans in Vietnam. There are sweetened mung beans in Thailand and sweetened black beans in Thailand. And I've inevitably missed a different type of sweetened bean used in Asia. So please let me know what those are, because one, I'd like to learn about them, and two, I'd like to eat them. So let me know in the comments what those are. I'll talk about it as well in my halo halo video. The history of halo halo comes from Japan by way of a shaped ice dish called kakigori. And one of the components is sweetened red beans, or adzuki beans. I did want to add that you can go to a Filipino grocery store and find different types of sweetened beans in jars, and those are great in a pinch. Here are all of the ingredients for the sweetened beans that my family uses for their version of Kapampangan style halo halo, starting with the beans themselves. These are great northern beans, a type of white bean. I asked my mom what type of beans they use in the Philippines, and she couldn't even tell me the exact name. She just said they were white beans. So these are great northern beans. This is what we've used to adapt our recipe here in the United States for this, and they've turned out wonderfully over the years, so great northern beans. We have granulated sugar, baking soda, and water. That's it.
The night before, I prepare the beans by soaking them in water. I add enough water to not just cover the beans, but to be about 4 to 6 inches above the top of the beans, because overnight the beans are going to absorb the water and expand. Next, I add in baking soda, which is great for softening beans, especially dried beans. It accelerates the breakdown of the cell walls and pectin, which holds the bean structure together. This leads to a more tender texture and reduces the cooking time. Mix it all together. Cover and leave to soak overnight at room temperature. The next day, you'll notice that the beans have soaked up a lot of water and plumped up. Pour off the water from the beans by using a strainer. Rinse the beans with water. This is the first of many steps to remove the excess baking soda. Transfer the beans to a pot. And then fill up the pot with water, making sure to completely cover the beans. You might find some bean skin or bean casing floating around. Those are harmless. Simply remove those by hand. Put the pot on the stove and cook on high. You're going to want to cook this until right before it starts to boil, and one of the cues you're going to see is a bunch of foam starts to form on the top. Then you can turn off the heat. Pour off the water again into a strainer. Be gentle with the beans as they're softening up with each cooking step. You want to keep all the beans intact, avoiding turning into a mash or a paste. Rinse again and remove any loose shells or casings by hand. The cycle of cooking the beans until a foam develops, pouring off the water and rinsing them will happen 2 more times for a total of 3 times. This is to remove all the excess baking soda. After a third round of cooking the beans until a foam develops, pour off the water one last time, rinse the beans, and fill up the pot with water. Bring the pot up to a simmer at medium to medium-high heat, and instead of pouring off the foam, we're simply going to take a strainer and try to skim off as much of the foam as we can. The beans will simmer for 25 to 45 minutes or until the beans have a soft texture. The most important tip to this recipe is to never mix the beans, because you want to make sure all the beans stay intact. That being said, when checking the doneness and softness of the beans, you want to check at multiple depths of the pot to make sure that they are cooked evenly all the way through. So what I'm trying to say is be gentle. The texture you're looking for in the beans is when you bite, they bite all the way through without any pushback, without being mushy. Once the beans have reached your desired texture and softness, it's time to add the sugar. It looks like a lot of sugar because it is. Remember, this is a component of halo halo and not something to be really eaten on its own. I'll say it again, do not mix this. The sugar will start to melt on its own. It'll make its way all the way through the pot. Trust me. If you find the water or syrup level to dip below the top of the beans, simply replenish with water. You want to make sure that the water level is right above the top of the beans. At this point, the beans will simmer for about 2 hours. You'll see the slightest bit of bubbles rising to the top. You'll need to adjust the heat as needed to achieve that effect. After simmering the beans for 2 hours, a thick syrup will start to develop. It'll thicken up even more after you cool it down in the fridge. And this is how you want the beans to look. They'll have a little bit of a sheen to them.
Okay, the beans have been cooling down for a couple of hours now. The pot is cool to the touch, and it's time to portion them out into separate containers and then put them in the fridge overnight and check on them tomorrow, and they'll be ready to use in halo halo. But before we do that, let's just give it a little bit of a sneak peek taste. Get a little bit of that syrup and the cooked beans. The beans just fall apart, and that's why it was so important that we don't do any extra mixing. Otherwise, it's gonna break up the beans and mash them up, and that's not what we want. We want individual beans. So let's portion these out. The beans are ready. They've been in the fridge overnight. They've cooled down, the syrup has thickened up, and it's time to give them a taste. These are not usually something that I like to eat on their own, though they can be as a snack. So let's give them a taste to see how they'll be when I put them in halo halo. Mga tama, let's eat. Like I said, these are super sweet. I mean, we put a lot of sugar. I believe we put 7 cups of sugar into the pot. And that's okay if they're really sweet, because this is a component of the halo halo and one of the main sweetening components that I use for halo halo. So it's okay that they're sweet or overly sweet, because I usually don't eat them on their own. But texture-wise, they're pillowy and soft, and they fall apart in your mouth, or they melt in your mouth. And that's one of the reasons why we don't do any mixing while they're in the pot. Otherwise, it's gonna turn into a mush, and that's not what we want. We want individual beans that we can taste. Yeah, so these are yummy, and or manyaman, and I can't wait to put these into some halo halo. Everybody, thank you for watching, and keep an eye out for my upcoming halo halo video. I promise it's gonna be a good one. You're not gonna wanna miss it. And leave a comment down below of your favorite food that you like to eat that's sweet, that's not typically eaten in a sweet way. And remember to like and subscribe. Peace!